Story time about how my best friend was stealing from me. A little background information. I was 17 or 18 whenever this all happened, and I was a senior in high school. Now, my family and I had just moved to a new state, and that is where I met my best friend, who we are going to call Grace. Now, Grace and I clicked instantly, but anytime that we would hang out, she would always want to come to my house and never wanted to go to hers. Her excuse was that she had a lot of siblings and her house was super small, there was nothing to do, which I didn't really care. I had no problem with this at all, until some weird shit started happening in my house. And when I say weird shit, I mean that stuff in my house literally started disappearing. Now, at first I wasn't that suspicious because it was just my clothes. And y'all know how things get lost in the laundry sometimes. But then it started to become stuff like my shoes and purses. So, I go and I ask my mom if she's seen any of my clothes or shoes or purses. And she goes and looks through her things to see if anything might be mixed in. But while she's doing that, she's realizing that some of her shit is missing too. So at first we're thinking that it's the cleaning lady, which I feel super bad about. But, before we blame anybody else that, we love and trust and we think would never steal from us, we would think that it would be more logical for somebody who doesn't really know us to steal from us. So we confront her and she denies everything, but just to be sure, we did something to test her and she did not steal our shit. But after this, we're getting a little bit worried that other stuff in the house might be missing, so we go and look and our jewelry is missing as well. So now we only had 2 suspects. First we had my cousin because she would stay over sometimes, and then we had Grace, which I thought was very unlikely because she was always with me. But nonetheless, I started to be more cautious around her. I would try to be more aware of where and what she was doing while she was in my house. And for a few days, nothing happened. So obviously, after a few times of her coming over, I was 99.9% sure that she wasn't stealing from us. But then, of course, the one night, she must have not realized that I was still awake because she got up to, I'm assuming, go to the bathroom. So I keep pretending to be asleep. And when she walked out of my room, I saw her walk towards the living room. And I decided not to go out there. Instead, I was going to wait until she came back with shit because that would be super awkward if I just went out there and she really could have just been getting some water or something. Well, what do you know? She comes back with some of our shit and she stuffs it in her book bag. So I decided not to confront her. I actually wait till the next day to just tell my mom about it. And that's when she told me that I just wasn't allowed to speak to Grace again or see her. But I wanted my shit back, so I go to her house to surprise her. Her sister ends up answering the door and she lets me in. So, she brings me into the living room and I'm sitting on the couch, and whenever Grace comes into the living room, you all should have saw her. It looked like she's seen a fucking ghost. And then she goes, "Why are you here?" Girl, you're not even gonna pretend to be happy to see me after you just stole all my shit? After you just robbed me? How rude of you. No, but I actually told her that I was there to finish a project with her, so she was like, okay, we can do it in the living room. And then I tell her that I need to go to the bathroom, and I go back. I find her room. As soon as I walk in, I see my shit. So I pull my phone out and I record everything. And she walks in her room. I don't even care. I'm literally still recording everything. She's crying and saying, "Oh my goodness, my mom made me steal this stuff because we're low-key down bad right now and we need money, da-da-da-da-da, and she knew y'all were rich." Babe, do me a favor. Save the sob story for someone who cares. And okay, just for shits and giggles, let's say that you are struggling. If you're struggling that bad, you would have been sold my shit because why is everything still in your room? So, I threatened to call the cops on her unless she gives all my shit back, and she didn't want that, so obviously she gave it all back. Well, I did find out a few days later that she was, in fact, trying to sell my stuff, but I don't care. You should have just came to me instead of fucking somebody over who actually cared about you. Storytime about how this guy was cheating on his girlfriend with me. So a little background information, I was 15 and in 10th grade. And the one day one of my friends, Josh, decided to expose this kid named Caden because this guy Caden posted on his Snapchat story, "Anybody who's 14 and younger, unadd me. I find it so weird that you little girls are swiping up on my stories calling me cute." So my best friend Josh decides to expose this man and he's like, weren't you just hanging out with a 12-year-old the other day? Make it make sense. So, you know, I only add Caden because I was gonna tell him that he's gross and disgusting for hanging out with 12-year-olds. But after he sent me a picture of his face saying hi, yeah, I immediately fell in love with this man. I know this looks bad. Trust me. I know. Anyways, when I started talking to this kid, I really thought that he was on some fuckboy type shit. He was actually super sweet and really kind.
Bruh.
Like, he never asked me for nudes or anything. He also told me that he was single, so him and I start flirting. And y'all, I really thought that this man was about to be my husband. Now, of course, I low-key doubted him a little bit, so I ended up taking screenshots of every one of our messages. Well, him and I had never actually met in person, but we did have plans to meet up that weekend. So a few days before him and I are supposed to meet up, all of a sudden he literally went ghost. I didn't hear from him all day. And then when I go to Snapchat him, bro has me blocked on almost everything. He had me blocked on Instagram as well, but he had 2 accounts on Instagram and he forgot to block me on the one. And Instagram really snitched on this man. Because when I clicked on his Instagram, it had the suggested accounts. Some girl with a profile picture of him and her popped up. And she had their date in her bio. They have been dating for a whole fucking year.
Don't be shocked. You're shocked? You're shocked?
So obviously I'm gonna tell her that her man was cheating on her, but whenever I add her on Snapchat, she immediately sends me a message that says, if this is about Caden, I don't want to hear it. So instead of talking to her about Caden, I literally just sent her all of the screenshots from these past 2 weeks that him and I have been talking. The only thing I said after that was, he's been cheating on you with me. So then she literally just responds with a video of them and she's like, okay, thank you. And I'm like, okay. I mean, I personally wouldn't stay with him, but to each their own. Anyways, so fast forward, they're still together and I'm still blocked on everything. Story time about how I did the nasty with somebody else's boyfriend. Yep. Anyway, so a little background information. I was 15 years old and in 9th grade. But back in 6th grade, I met this boy who we're gonna call Darren. And you know, back then, him and I had a little crush on each other, but we were too scared to tell each other. So nothing ever came of it. Even though I don't know what would have came of that because we were literally in 6th grade. Maybe a 2-day relationship, who knows? Anyways, so him and I kept in touch. Obviously, we weren't like besties, but you know, we would catch up here and there and we would talk to other people as well. Well, fast forward to 7th grade. That was a pretty rough year for me. What happened, you might be asking? Well, I had been deemed the school thought because my new got sent around.
And there's people that are dying.
And now all of these guys only wanted to do the nasty with me. The worst part is like I was still super innocent, right? I only sent them because I really liked this kid. And it was one of those situations where I felt pressured to send them because I didn't want him getting bored of me and then breaking up with me or stop talking to me. Because if I'm not gonna send them, somebody else will. So yeah, worst mistake of my life. Anyways, fast forward to January of 2021. Darren puts on his Snapchat, girl best friend with a question mark. You're a hoe. Okay? Like, just say you want some pussy and get it over with. Anyway, so my lonely, desperate ass swipes up and now him and I start talking. Now, he did have a girlfriend at the time, but they ended up breaking up, which I'm thinking to myself, thank God, because bitch. I realized that I caught feelings for him real quick. But then a week later, what does he do? He goes and gets a girlfriend. Like, I just really felt like the universe was working against me in every single way possible. Anyway, so him and I continue to talk over the next 2 or 3 months, just not in the way that I was hoping we would be talking, if you know what I mean. But during March, just before my 15th birthday, him and I had hung out at the park and tell me why this man literally kissed me. And then he says to me, I've been waiting 3 years to do that. Like, oh, okay. Pretty funny that you say that because you've had a girlfriend every other freaking week. But obviously I wasn't thinking this at the time. So yes, him and I made out. And I know y'all are wondering, well, did he have a girlfriend at this time? He did. And yes, I knew it was wrong, but did I care? No. The answer is no, not really. Now see, this situation right here is what I would call a they problem, right? Because Meaning, him and his girl collectively have some things that they need to work on within their relationship. That does not involve me. As far as I'm concerned, I'm perfect. They have the issues, not me. Besides, I wasn't friends with this girl, so I owed her no loyalty. Sorry, bae. Anyways, so fast forward a week after my birthday, I decided to invite Darren over, where my very strict and very, very, very religious family and I lived. But I didn't really care about the rules, so that whole no sex before marriage thing, totally out the window. I did not care. Like, it's the 21st century. That doesn't apply to us. Anyway, so he ended up bringing his friend with him, but Darren and I ended up going in the other room, and we did the thing. We did. And then that whole week, his friend was hitting me up, so I ended up inviting his friend over that weekend, but his friend and I literally just made out. We didn't do anything else. Well, fast forward a month, Darren came over for the second time. Well, the second and last time. And you know, of course, we do the nasty. And after he left, I was feeling super insecure because I really, 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 really liked him, but he wouldn't leave his girl for me. So me being upset and emotional, what do? I threatened him. I tell him that either he's gonna break up with his girlfriend or I'm gonna tell her everything. And then guess what he did? He blocked me. Yup. And when I say he blocked me on everything. He blocked me on his socials. He blocked me on her socials. Like, he was not playing games with me at all. But it's like, if you love your girl that much, why are you doing shit with me?
I know I be doing some fucked up things. What I do? But you did a fucked up bird thing.
That's the real question here. Like, be so for real. But to be honest, I think she found out right away because they broke up literally 2 days later. But fast forward, both of them are super on and off still. And to be honest, I don't really think about him too much anymore because I have a new man and he is literally better than Darren in every single way possible. Even better in bed. Moral of the story, y'all, it is not about the size of the boat, it's about the motion in the ocean. I'm just kidding. That was a quote that was left at the end of this story time. Y'all crack me up.
Story time about why you just can't bring some friends around your boyfriend. So a little background information. I was 17 and a junior in high school. And I have been best friends with this one girl who we're going to call Lily for about 2 years. Now, Lily and I weren't your ordinary best friends. We were the ones that would party together, but we would never talk about anything serious. And when I mean serious things, I mean like a secret that you don't want anybody to know. Just for a little example, the one time I told her that I thought I was pregnant, and clearly she knew that I was super scared, and I told her I don't want anybody to know, please don't say anything. Yeah, in about 30 minutes, I had like 20 people asking me if I was pregnant, and then somehow my parents found out. She's also the best friend that you keep away from any guy that you like. Well, I have been dating this guy who we're gonna call Jared for 6 months. And obviously now that I have a boyfriend, I've stopped hanging out with her as much. But my whole thing is she would never give me a heads up on plans. She would literally just text me and be like, hey, we're going out tonight. And I would text her back and I would be like, sorry, I can't. I already have plans with Jared. So this made her really upset, like for part 2. Part 2 about why you just can't bring some of your friends around your boyfriend. So like I said, she was getting very upset with the fact that she would ask me to make plans last minute and I would tell her that I'm busy with my boyfriend. And this went on throughout Jared and I's whole relationship. And it wasn't like I would ignore her. I would still hang out with her. I just wouldn't go and party and stuff like that because I respected my relationship. She would also always ask me to not bring my boyfriend to these parties, and that's another reason why I wouldn't go. So the one night she's like, listen, you know, come out with me. You can bring your boyfriend. It won't be a problem. Which was a shocker. So I was a little bit skeptical, but I said okay. So we go to this party, and usually whenever I'm with Lily, I get really messed up. But I was trying to pace myself this night. And then she's like, come on, you don't mind if she gets drunk, right, Jared? Of course, him wanting me to have fun, he said no, he doesn't mind. She calls us an Uber, and then she asked for my boyfriend's Snapchat just so that way she could check up on us because I was too drunk. The entire ride home, Lily is blowing up Jared's phone, and we just think that she's trying to check on us. No. Instead, when we got home, he opened his phone, and it was actually Lily sending him a bunch of naked pictures. Story time about how my ex-boyfriend stole all my shit and then gave it to his new girlfriend. So a little background information, I was 23 and I had been dating this guy who we're gonna call Derek for 2 years. Now, at first I thought that our relationship was perfect. Of course, you guys know how it goes. But then the one day he came home from work and he told me that he had been cheating on me throughout our whole relationship. He literally had a full-on relationship the past 2 years that him and I were supposed to be together with another girl. But yeah, he came home from work and he told me, listen, I don't want to be with you. I really love her. You know, it's just not working out. So obviously I go and I find her social media and I tell her. And she just blocks me. She literally just blocks me. And then he told me that she knew that he was also dating me at the same time. So whatever, fast forward, you know, he moves out, he moves in with her, and he is slowly moving his stuff out of my apartment. Like, it literally took him 4 months to get all of his stuff out of my apartment. Anyway, so the one day he calls me while I'm at work and he's like, hey, can I come get the keys? I need to get some of my stuff. So obviously this had been going on the past 4 months, so I was like, yeah, just come pick the keys up. So he does, like for part 2. Part 2 about how my ex stole all of my stuff and gave it to his new girlfriend. So like I said, he comes, he grabs the keys, and he goes to my house, he's getting all of his stuff. When my neighbor, who is one of my friends, she's like freaking out, calling me over 10 times. Obviously, I'm at work, so I can't answer the phone. And then I get a text from her saying that he's there with his new girlfriend. Well, I guess she isn't really a new girlfriend if he's been dating her the whole relationship that we had, but you guys know what I mean. So I'm freaking out and I call him and then I hear her in the background talking to my dog. Now, obviously, I don't even want this girl in my apartment in general, so I'm like freaking out that she's trying to talk to my dog. So I'm yelling at him. I'm like, I want her out of the apartment. I'll call the police if you guys don't leave. Also, tell her to get away from my dog. So, you know, he says okay, hangs up the phone, and I call my neighbor and I tell her, call the police if she goes in my apartment again. And less than 2 minutes later, my friend calls the police because his girlfriend started breaking stuff in my apartment and she took my dog. Literally, like they drove away with my dog and then let it go in the middle of the woods. But I guess it's okay because I got my dog back. Storytime about why I hate my brother's girlfriend. So a little background information, I was 14 years old and had just started my freshman year of high school, and my brother and his girlfriend were both seniors. And we're gonna call his girlfriend Riley. Now, Riley and my brother started dating in the middle of the summer, and you would think since they just started dating and basically just met each other that I wouldn't know her that well. But literally 2 days after they started dating, she started spending every single day at my house. I'm being serious, like she had a whole duffel bag that had basically her closet in it. But that wasn't the problem. So in the summertime, my parents would plan a lot of family activities. And since they were called family activities, his girlfriend wasn't allowed to go. I mean, I think she would have been allowed to go, but she was also really disrespectful to my mom. So after one of our family days, my parents asked my brother if Riley would be joining us for dinner. And he just ignored them and went up to his room. And my room's right next to his, so I could hear everything. And Riley called him like for part 2. Part 2 about why I hate my brother's girlfriend. So like I said, my room was right next to my brother, so I could literally hear everything. And I guess Riley called him and she was complaining about me. She was like, she's the reason why your mom doesn't like me. I feel like she's jealous of me. She doesn't want us to be together. Which was really weird because I didn't give a fuck about what my brother did. So fast forward, school finally starts. And Riley lived about 20 minutes away from us. So my brother told her that he couldn't go and pick her up for school every day. But obviously I would ride to school with him because we lived together. Anyways, eventually she had a problem with that too. So my brother and I had to start leaving 30 minutes early to get to school so we could pick her up. So the first time that we pick her up, we pull up to her house. And obviously I'm in the front seat and she's just standing there. So my brother rolls down the window and he's like, get in the fucking car, we're gonna be late. And then she literally has the audacity to start arguing with my brother in front of me about why she should get the front seat instead of me. Like for part 3. Part 3 about why I hated my brother's girlfriend. So like I said, once she got in, she started screaming about how she should get the front seat instead of me. So I turn around and I'm like, last time I checked, you've only been here for 2 months. Stay in your fucking lane. And then she starts crying because she's like, oh my god, your sister's so mean to me. Like, I just feel like I should have more respect as his girlfriend. So fast forward to the weekend, my mom said that she needs to have a talk with me. And she's like, honey, I know you may not like your brother's girlfriend, but you have to stop being mean to her. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I've only had one conversation with her in the last week. And that was to tell her to stay in her fucking lane. And then I told her about everything going on. So she calls my brother down to ask him if it's true. And my brother was pretty pissed off at me, but he wouldn't lie. So my mom said that she was not allowed over the house anymore. And that he wasn't allowed to go pick her up from school until I got my license. So that just caused more problems between her and my brother, so he broke up with her. And then she started spreading rumors that she broke up with him because there was something weird going on between him and I.
Storytime, my best friend cheated on his girlfriend with me. So a little background information. So Gavin and I had been best friends ever since we were little. We lived in the same neighborhood. And my parents and his grandparents were like pretty close, I guess. But like everybody in our neighborhood was close with each other. and I always had a huge crush on him. And I would try to like subtly tell him that I liked him, but he would always be like, "Ew, don't joke with me like that. Like, that's not true." And eventually, I just kind of got the hint that that was his way of telling me, "I don't like you. Stop before I tell you," in a mean way. So when we were in middle school, he was always having these like 2-day relationships with all these girls and everything. And me, not so much, because sis didn't have a glow up until she reached like her sophomore year in high school. And the thing was, I wasn't that best friend who would be like, "Ew, don't date her, like she's ugly," or anything like that. Like, I would totally respect all of his relationships, even if they were 2 days long, but he would literally still block me. Well, the one day we were hanging out at his house, like for part 2 about how my best friend cheated on his girlfriend with me. So like I said, the one night I was at his house and he was on my phone and he was asking me who all these guys were on my Snapchat. And I told him that I had been talking to them and he was just being super toxic. He was talking shit on every single one of them. So eventually I started dating this guy, Trey, and after that he texted me saying that I was gross and everything else, when the next day he literally got a girlfriend. But weirdly enough, he didn't block me that time. He actually started texting me more, saying how him and his girlfriend were so happy together, da-da-da-da-da. And unlike him, I would be supportive. Well, the one night at 2 a.m., he came over my house and he was like, "I don't have feelings for my girlfriend." And I'm like, "Okay, then why are you with her?" And then he has the nerve to say, "Don't you get that I like you?" Like, really? Well, eventually we cut off all communication and he was still with this girl. Well, the one night he asked me to come over and talk, and we ended up doing the nasty. And then he blocked me on everything after he said we should both leave our girlfriends and boyfriends. Well, I ended up telling his girlfriend what we did, and they also come to my family cookouts.
Story time about how my neighbor killed my dog. So a little background information. When I was about 3 years old, my parents got me a German Shepherd. And my neighbors who lived next to us absolutely loved our dog. And so did their kids. Like, their dad literally put a doggy door in the fence, so that way our dog could go back and forth from our house to his house. Well, when I was about 8 years old, my neighbors decided to sell their house. So he told us that he had to take out the doggy door because the people that were buying his house hated animals. Well, the people who had just bought his house, they ended up moving in before he could take out the doggy door. So our new neighbors asked us if we could put like a piece of plywood in front of the door so that way our dog couldn't get through. And they said that they would do the same to their side of the fence. So my dad said, yeah, he put a piece of plywood in front of there. Well, my dog, Gabe, the one night that my brother let him out, he ended up getting the plywood off of the doggy door. Well, my brother literally had to crawl through the doggy door to get the dog before one of them saw him in the yard. Like for part 2 about how my neighbors killed my dog. So like I said, my brother let the dog out, and my dog got the piece of plywood off of the door. And my brother had to crawl through the doggy door to get my dog out of our neighbor's yard, so that way our neighbors wouldn't wake up and know that he got through. But whenever my brother went to go get Gabe, he realized that my neighbors didn't even have a piece of plywood on their side of the fence or anything. So my brother told my dad, and my dad went over there the next day to talk to them. And he pretty much said, "I'm not going to have a piece of fucking plywood on my side of the fence if you're not going to be doing anything on yours to prevent my dog from going into your yard." And they were like, "Oh, well, your old neighbors never took out the doggy door." And my dad was like, "That's not our fucking fault." Well, then our new neighbors said, "If your dog all of a sudden becomes sick or just does not come back, don't be surprised." My dad decided to replace the door himself. Well, once Gabe realized that the doggy door was gone, when we would let him outside, he would literally just sit there and bark at the fence. Well, 2 weeks later, Gabe ended up passing away, and we found out it's because our neighbors were giving him rat poison. Story time about how I was dating the school shooter. Yeah. So a little background information. I was a sophomore whenever this all happened, and it was around October. Well, the one day I was sitting at lunch with my group of friends. We're all sitting there having a good time when one of my friends dares me to go over and sit with this one kid. And he was sitting alone, he was kind of shy. And of course I did because they had offered me $10, guys. Can't beat that. So I go over there, we start talking, and I realize that he's actually really nice. And he's really hot. I never really saw what he looked like because he was always wearing hoodies during school. Anyways, we started hanging out more, and eventually he said that he liked me and we started dating. The relationship seemed pretty perfect. Well, 6 months in, I think he started to trust me more because he had told me about this one group of girls that he absolutely hated. This group of girls just happened to be my friends. I didn't tell him that I was friends with these girls because they were considered controversial, like for part 2. 2 about how I was dating the school shooter. Like I said, I had never told him that I was friends with these girls because they were controversial, but he would go on for hours about how much he hated these girls. He went as far to say that he wanted to kill them. I didn't think anything of it at first, because him and I had more of a sarcastic sense of humor, but he started to sound more and more serious every time that he would talk about it. Well, after us dating for 10 months, he calls me the one night, and he starts telling me about how he's going to shoot up the school. He had told me his entire plan of how he was going to do this. Now, he must have thought that we were like ride or die relationship, when in reality, I was recording everything that he was saying. After we got off the phone, I wrote an email to all of the office staff in my school, but I fell asleep and never finished the email. I woke up the next morning, finished it. I had texted my friends not to go to school that day. I had already missed the bus. I rode my bike to school that day. I ran to the principal's office, nobody was there, and that's whenever I heard shots in the hallway. Story time about why I beat up my best friend. So a little background information. Her and I had been best friends since we were in 7th grade. Her family was rich, mine was poor, and at first she was a really good friend. She was always there for me whenever I needed her, until our freshman year of high school, which is when her and I started hanging out with boys. Now, my mom was kind of strict. She wouldn't really let me hang out with boys, but her mom was more lenient about her hanging out with boys. Every weekend she would throw a party at her house, and she would throw them in her attic because 1, it was huge, and 2, her parents didn't give a fuck what she did up there. Anyways, she would always offer to do my hair and makeup before the party started, which always made me really excited because I never really put any work into my physical appearance. Well, little did I know, the only reason why she would offer to do my hair and makeup at these parties was so that way she could make me look like shit in front of all the boys. So after that, I taught myself how to do my own makeup and do my own hair, like for part 2.